to November Sara Sweets Baking Challenge, where we are going to show you all the secrets to a delicious chocolate cream pie recipe. We're going to start with a homemade velvety chocolate custard from scratch and pour it into one of our favorite pie shells and top it with fresh homemade whipped cream. So let's go! Basically what we'll be making first is it's a homemade chocolate custard, a chocolate pudding that's going to go into our pie shell. The ingredient list is relatively short, so don't be intimidated by this. It is a little more challenging than, the instant stuff, but it is not hard if you follow the steps. First thing we want to do is melt our chocolate chips in the microwave. You could alternately do this on a double boiler over the stove, but microwave is the easiest way to go. You want a cup and a half of your favorite chocolate chips. My favorite to use in this recipe is the Ghirardelli 60% bittersweet chips. They're just super delicious, but if you're not so much of a dark chocolate fan, absolutely use a semi-sweet chip. If you use a milk chocolate chip, just be very, very careful when you melt it in the microwave, so that way you don't scorch them. Do them on medium level, stir in every 30 seconds till they're melted. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these in the microwave, and then we'll get going. When you're making a homemade custard or homemade pudding, and you're dealing with egg yolks and milk and all that on the stove top, heating it up, you have to be very careful so that way you do not scramble your eggs, because nobody wants chunks of scrambled eggs in their pudding. So what we're going to start with is in a small saucepan. You're going to start with some sugar. You're going to have some cornstarch, which thickens it, and then a pinch of salt and our egg yolks. We're going to use 6 egg yolks in this recipe. I know that seems like a lot, but that's what makes it so luxurious. So what I'm going to do is just whisk all that in the saucepan till it's nice and thick and smooth. It's going to be kind of yellow in color. Now before we take this to the stove, we are going to whisk in a little bit of milk. Now I've already warmed the milk. We have 3 cups of milk here. The reason I've warmed it slightly is so that way my eggs will start to get warmer before I put them directly on the heat. So I'm just going to pour a large splash in there, and I'm also going to pour it all over the table and whisk that in till it's smooth. And I've got my whisk here, it's got a big chunk of egg, so make sure you get that out. And then gradually whisk in the rest of the milk and spill more of it on the table. Do what you can, right? And now we're going to take our pan here. I'll give you a quick look-see. Pretty runny, but we're going to take it over the stove and cook it on medium heat, stirring pretty much constantly until it thickens. Let's go. So the custard is starting to thicken up, and at this point you do not want to stop stirring, okay? Do not stop stirring. Get your whisk down in the corners, nooks and crannies, because that's where you will get lumps if you stop stirring. And once it comes to like a full boil, you want to let it boil about 1 minute, stirring the whole time, and then we'll be done. Well, not done, but ready to add our chocolate and our butter. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's remove it from the heat. Alright, we're ready to add our chocolate. As you can see, my chocolate chips are nice and smooth and melted, so we're just going to add those right to the pudding and whisk them in. That's kind of what it looks like. And then we're going to let this pudding set for 5 minutes before we add the butter.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, now it's time to add our butter. We have 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter here. Just add that and whisk it in. Now before you assemble your pie, we need to make sure this pudding, this pastry cream, is nice and cold. So you're going to want to transfer it to a different bowl. It'll cool down quicker. Nice thing about this is too, if you're thinking I want to make this ahead, you can make this pudding part 2 to 3 days ahead. And then the day of Thanksgiving or whatever day you're making the pie for, just fill the pie shell and garnish it with the whipped cream. So I'm going to pour it into this bowl here. And I chose a larger bowl because I want to cool it down as quickly as I can. And when it's more spread out, it will cool quicker. Alternately, you could, if you need to cool it very quickly, you could use an ice bath. Set this bowl inside a larger bowl filled with ice cubes, and it will cool down very quickly. Now when you go to put this in the fridge, you want to wrap a piece of saran wrap and press it down onto the pudding, or else if it has that exposure to the air, it will develop like a gummy skin, which is kind of gross. So make sure you do that for the best results. Alright, now it's time to make the whipped cream topping for our chocolate cream pie. It's very simple. If you made the caramel apple cheesecake pie back in September, it's going to be pretty much the same exact thing. So we've got some cold, heavy cream. You want to make sure it's cold. If it's not cold, you're going to have struggles. But you're going to put that in your mixing bowl and put it on the mixer. You could whip this by hand, but it takes a very long time, lots of elbow grease. And you want your whisk attachment. And you're going to just let that start going on about medium. And eventually it's going to whip up and get volume. The air will whip into the cream and it will turn into whipped cream. Once it starts getting some of that volume is when you want to add your sweetener. So right now, if you would eat whipped cream without any sugar in it, it would be nice and creamy, but it wouldn't have any sweetness to it. So especially if you have a dark chocolate in your pie, you want to make sure to sweeten it slightly to counteract that. Now if you use milk chocolate in your pie, you might want to use less sugar, so it would counterbalance that. The whipped cream is a great way to flavor. You can flavor it, so if you want to accent your pie with like a cinnamon whipped cream, that would be yummy. I love cinnamon and chocolate together. An espresso whipped cream would be delicious. A caramel whipped cream, just add a little bit of that to it once it's finished, and it will flavor that whipped cream. Even if you wanted to do like a strawberry whipped cream, if you puree strawberries and add it to it at the end, that makes it really yummy. So it's starting to get some volume, so I'm going to add my powdered sugar and just let it whip until stiff peaks form. Right now it's a very soft cream, almost like a Cool Whip, not even quite. This still tastes yummy, but it just doesn't hold up very well. So you want to make sure you keep whipping it. Now if you don't want to make your own whipped cream, that's totally okay. Buy yourself some ready whip, some Cool Whip. Nobody's even going to know. I mean, you might know it's not homemade, but it's still going to taste good. Oh, there we go. We're there. We've got our homemade whipped cream for our chocolate cream pie. See how we've got the stiff peaks here? How it can like stand up on its own? That means you're there. So we are ready to roll with assembling this pie. Alright, we're at the point where it's time to assemble our pie so we can eat it. You're going to choose your favorite pie crust. With the chocolate cream pie, I love me an Oreo crust because I love chocolate. If you are more of a traditionalist, you might do a traditional pie crust. I am not good at making traditional pie crust, so that's going to be a future baking challenge, but I was not up for that quite yet. But if you do a regular traditional pie crust, you just want to bake it off. That way it's nice and cool and golden brown. But I actually even just bought an Oreo crust. You can make these homemade, obviously, but I took the easy way out and bought the store-bought one because then it's in a nice little tin that I can take wherever I'm going, and I don't have to worry about bringing home my pie pan. So you're going to take your chilled pudding out of the fridge and just give it a nice stir to kind of loosen it up. This stuff is so delicious. And then just scoop that into your pie shell, like so, and spread it around. Now this is a full pie. That's what I love about it. I cannot wait to have a piece of this tonight. And then with your whipped cream, depending on how fancy you want to get, you can just spread it over the top. If you want to be real fancy, you can pipe it using a piping bag. I'm going to try to go the fancy route today. And I'm probably just going to pipe a border. This is enough whipped cream to cover the pie, but if you want to be super fancy with it, if you're going to pile it up high, you might just want to accent the border with it, which is what I'm going to do. If you really like whipped cream, you probably want to double the recipe that is on the card. Especially if you're doing this for Thanksgiving, if you go ahead and double the recipe, then you'll have enough. If you have a pumpkin pie or something, you can use it to top that as well. So I'm just going to make a nice pretty border around the edge. And there we go. If you wanted to continue to fill in, you could. Actually, I might do that. I think I have enough. You can always just spoon it on and spread it out too. Okay, just kidding. I don't have enough to do it all thick and fancy like this. So if you do love whipped cream, make sure that you double the recipe. So I'm going to have a change of plans and turn my pretty garnish into the traditional homemade look. Just going to kind of smear it all around. It tastes better this way anyways, in my opinion. And just kind of spike it up here a little bit. Give it a little texture so it looks nice and pretty. And what I've got to garnish it are some chocolate curls. Now you can make these yourself with a vegetable peeler. We have some at the bakery that are already made that I need to use up, so I'm just going to use a few of these. Sprinkle over the whole top of the pie. I like chocolate, so I'm going to do a lot. One more little handful. And there we go. You want to set this in the fridge at least 30 minutes to an hour before you cut into it, or it's going to be super goopy. But we have our chocolate cream pie, perfect for Thanksgiving. If you complete the challenge, please make sure you post your picture in our Facebook group, hashtag it's Sara Sweet's Baking Challenge. I am loving seeing you guys come up with your creations. If you make changes to it, let us know, or if you modify it for dairy-free. This could easily be made gluten-free if you use a gluten-free crust for you gluten-free folks. Sorry, vegan people, I'm not sure it would be easily modified for you, but if you give it a try, let us know. And happy baking!